hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, great. And can everyone see the presentation?
I can.
Can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Let's see. It's about 10:02, so probably about time to go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for joining me for this virtual meet and greet. I'm happy that you folks could be here. I'm just going to talk a little bit about my office, what my office is empowered to do under the statute, the kind of services that we provide, and what I'm doing to get the office up off the ground. So just by way of introduction about my background, I started off my legal career after law school filing a large number of Freedom of Information Act requests. I was in Washington, D.C. working for a small nonprofit organization focusing on privacy rights and government transparency. And as part of that, I filed a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests with agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the National Security Agency, and then often followed those requests up with litigation. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years, working at EPIC, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, and had a fair amount of success actually with a lot of those open records requests. The information that we got through those Freedom of Information Act requests that we filed often buttressed our campaigns against surveillance technology like the body scanners in the airports or Stingray technology that's used by police departments. So we used those Freedom of Information Act documents, took them out to the public to inform the public about what had previously been secretive government programs. So from there, I thought that it would be interesting to see things from the other side. So I decided that I wanted to go and work for the federal government. And I was fortunate enough to get a job working for the U.S. Department of Labor, where I was actually defending Freedom of Information Act lawsuits, which was an interesting experience. And it gave me the opportunity to see what the operating conditions really were on the ground. From the outside as an advocate, I had some ideas about how government worked, about how public records processing worked. And what I ended up seeing on the inside was a little bit different than what I expected. So it gave me some useful perspective. And at the same time, I was also serving first as a representative from the requester community and then as a representative from the government on the Office of Government Information Services Federal Freedom of Information Act Advisory Committee. And that committee, like the Public Records Advisory Council that I'm now the chair of, has a composition that's set by statute, and it's a mixed composition of requesters, government folks, historians and academics, and various other stakeholders. So I served on that committee when I was at EPIC as a representative of the requester community, and then when I moved over to the Department of Labor, I reapplied to be on the committee. And I was fortunate enough to get reappointed this time as a requester, as a member of the government community. So I worked for the Department of Labor for 3 years, almost, before I took this job here in Oregon. And I'm thrilled to be here, to be working to get this office off the ground, and to be doing this important work on public records in a state that I think is pretty incredible and very suited to my hobbies of hiking and mountaineering. So the Office of the Public Records Advocate, I have 3 primary statutory duties under ORS 192. The first is to provide facilitated dispute resolution services, and I can provide facilitated dispute resolution between requesters and state agencies at the request of either of those parties, or I can provide facilitated dispute resolution services between requesters and cities if both parties want facilitated dispute resolution. I'm also tasked with providing training on public records laws to government entities. And I'm going to be embarking on a series of trainings, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But I also thought that though the statute doesn't require me to do this, it would be useful for my office to provide training to the public on how to create a good public records request, how to file those requests, where to direct them. I think some of the problems with the processing of public records requests could probably be remedied if the public had a better sense of how to make requests, how to research them, and how to locate the correct entity to send the request to. My third task under the statute is to lead the Public Records Advisory Council, which is tasked with making proposals for changes in law and policy that will improve transparency. It has, as I said, a diverse set of stakeholders. The composition is set by statute. Just pause here. I realize my webcam doesn't seem to be working. Let me see if I can fix that. Oh, great. Okay, now you may be able to see me, hopefully. So on that first responsibility, the mediation process, the first thing that I wanted to do is put into place some administrative rules. And these administrative rules will be designed to both bind my office, but also to inform the public and other government agencies of what they can expect as part of the mediation process. So I put together those rules, I drafted them, and I took them to the Public Records Advisory Council, which under the statute is responsible for adopting rules governing the operations of my office, including but not limited to the rules establishing procedures for the conduct of facilitated dispute resolution. So we had our first Public Records Advisory Council meeting, I believe a week ago today. And I did send out a draft copy of the rules. A draft copy of the rules is also up on my website. And the council considered the rules and we talked through them. They made some proposals for revisions, which I'm integrating right now. And then they voted to approve the rules. And those rules will then go through the regular public notice and comment process. I think it's important for the public to have the option to weigh in on these mediation rules because they will affect the public. Other agencies can also weigh in. So if you review the rules once we publish them as part of that process, and you have comments, I would love to hear them. A lot of what I did in those administrative rules is based on the corollary to my office, which is the Office of Government Information Services operating on the federal level. They provide a similar mediation function for public records requests. So I took a look at their rules and modeled some of mine after those. So the mediation services will be offered between requesters and state agencies at the request of either party, as I mentioned before. But requesters do have the option to opt out. There are instructions for that within the administrative rules and also in ORS 192.464. And mediation services will be offered between requesters and cities if both parties consent. And other kinds of informal advice and assistance will be offered whenever time and resources allow. And I actually think that that third category will probably be a larger portion of the work that I'll be doing, maybe even in the mediation. I suspect that there's a fair amount of appetite on both the requester side and on the government side to just receive some informal advice or some informal assistance on public records requests. Anecdotally, I can say that so far the requests for assistance I've received, most of them wouldn't fall into the bucket of things that I would be empowered to provide mediation or facilitated dispute resolution for under the statute. So that is disputes between a requester and a state agency or disputes between a requester and a city. A lot of them are questions that requesters have about requests that they have submitted to elected officials or for potentially judicial records. So in those instances, I find that it's often helpful to just pick up the phone and give the government entity a call and have a conversation with them, but also to have a conversation with the requester about what it is that they're really looking for, so we can potentially find another solution. So if, for example, they're looking for something that would fall squarely under an exemption, perhaps we can find a way for them to get us the same or a similar kind of information that wouldn't necessarily fall under an exemption, but it would serve the same purpose for the requester. Sometimes the requests for assistance that I've received so far have just been requests for help locating a particular kind of record. And I find that a lot of times just making a few calls can move things along there. So I'm happy to provide those services to members of the public or to government officials. So a few instances in which mediation might be helpful. Obviously, fee issues. There are a lot of issues with denial of fee waivers or reductions requesters may feel that they're entitled to. Also, specific charges that requesters may see on the bill that they may object to. Exemption issues, the full denial of a request, just a pure lack of response, narrowing issues, communication issues, and as I mentioned before, issues just locating a record or locating the correct person to send the request to. So in all of these areas, I'd be happy to mediate, or if it isn't a place where I can necessarily mediate under the statute, to just provide some informal assistance and answer questions. So formal mediation can be initiated by filling out a form on the Public Records Advocate website. The website, you can go to the Department of State's, or the Secretary of State's website, and you'll click on the Archives, and under Archives, you'll see a button for Public Records Advocate and Advisory Council. And under the Advocate tab, That'll take you to a new page that we've just set up, and there's an easy form there that you can fill out and file a complaint. Informal assistance is available via email. You can email me at ginger.mccall@oregon.gov, or just go ahead and give me a call at 503-378-5228. I'd be happy to hear from you and offer as much assistance as I can offer. I will also be embarking on a fairly ambitious training program. As I said, I wanted to do some public trainings, so I'm hoping to do trainings on both the Oregon Public Records Law and also the Freedom of Information Act. Because the two are often intertwined or mistaken for each other, I thought that it would be helpful to talk to the public about both of these statutes. I have one public training scheduled thus far, but I would be happy to train others, and I will be planning on doing some more public outreach in the coming months to hopefully schedule some additional dates. If you are a member of the public or the press and you'd like me to come and give a training at a location, I would be happy to do that, so feel free to reach out to me. I'm also going to be doing government trainings in conjunction with the records management folks here at Archives. We thought that that would be a good use of resources since we'll be sharing transportation out to various locales across the state. Then we can do back-to-back trainings, first training on records management and then a training on public records requests. So you can see that I have a fairly long list of trainings, and this isn't even at this point comprehensive. There are a few more that we scheduled just in the last few days. So if you'd like to schedule a training, if you're with the government or a member of the public, you can go ahead and send me an email at ginger.mccall@oregon.gov. The Public Records Advisory Council, which, as I mentioned, has a composition set by ORS 192. It has representatives of the media, the public, the legislature, and the executive branch. The council is tasked with making recommendations on changes in law, policy, or practice that could enhance transparency in public process and government and facilitate rapid dissemination of public records to requesters. The council's ability to make policy recommendations was also further buttressed in a recent executive order by the governor. That's Executive Order 1805, which was signed on April 30th, 2018. And that executive order encouraged the council to move forward on a statewide standardized fee structure, to work with the state archivist to update records management systems and technologies for state agency records, and to develop a mechanism to track requests, responses, and performance metrics, and using that information to identify frequently requested records, which can then be proactively disclosed. So I've begun the process of working with the council to brainstorm ideas for potential legislative reforms. I have a few ideas of my own, but I also wanted to hear from the various stakeholders on the council as well, of course. So we had our first meeting on May 23rd. The recording is available on YouTube, and you can find that through the Public Records Advisory Council website, which again, go to the Secretary of State's website, click on the archives, click on the button for Public Records Advocate and Advisory Council, and then you'll see a button for the Public Records Advisory Council. And there's a list of all of the past meetings of the council, and especially this most recent meeting where we discussed potential legislative reforms and we discussed the administrative rules. So we also discussed meeting frequency. The statute requires that the council meets twice a year, although in the process of getting my office off the ground, I thought that it would be useful for that council to meet more frequently. So they will be meeting several times in the next 6 months to discuss the administrative rules and potential legislative proposals. So one of the other things I'm working on is that I am hiring a deputy. I've posted a job announcement. I'm seeking a deputy who has a commitment to public service and transparency and significant experience with Oregon public records laws. Attorneys are preferred, but others with advanced degrees may be considered. So if you or someone you know would be a good fit for that position, I would love to hear from them. And I've got the website there. It's also posted up on the Secretary of State's hiring website. So one thing that I would like to get from these meet and greets, this is an opportunity for me to tell you about myself and my office, but it's also a good opportunity for me to get feedback from you about what you think would be most useful for requesters or agencies. What are the most common issues that you see with records requests? What resources should we include on our website? What should we include in our trainings? How can we better reach necessary constituents? And what changes should be made in the public records law or its implementation? And once again, here's my contact information. If you want to send me an email with any thoughts on the feedback or give me a call, my contact information is there. I also have a new Twitter account and a Facebook account, so you can find me there as well. And I have a blog, which is in its infancy, should be started, I think later this week. I'll probably make my first post. And again, the website, which we've just put together, which has additional resources, including links to relevant statutes and administrative rules and the proposed fee structure that was put together by the working group last year for a statewide standardized fee schedule for public records requests. So you can go to the resources section, and I have some links there. I also have a biography and a link to the Public Records Advisory Council website. So let's see, I'll go back to the feedback in case anyone has any comments, either on the phone or in chat. I would be happy to hear them. Thoughts from the phone?
Ginger, this is Therese Bottomley of the Oregonian.
Yes, hello, Therese.
Hi, I'm interested in what you think you might post on the website as you go, kind of training materials, useful tips, or is that going to be what your blog primarily is?
I think that there will be a little overlap between the blog and the website. I definitely plan on putting training materials up on the website, training materials that are designed for both the public and for government entities. I plan on making the resources page more robust as time goes on. It's also at least my initial plan to, and I'd like to get feedback on this as well, if there are final mediation agreements, then I would like to put those, if there is a sort of final agreement for the mediation, a finding on the part of my office, I would like to make that publicly available. Also, as an effort toward transparency of my office, I'm hoping to be able to put my budget and some of my other sort of administrative documents up on the website for people to inspect so they can, know more about my office. I think if I'm going to talk about transparency, it's important that I model that as well.
Sounds good.
Are there other materials that you think I should be putting up on the website that would be useful to you as a requester?
Well, I think that one thing we've seen certainly is, I call them kind of the greatest hits, things that come up over and over and over again, like, why can't I get a police report? Mm-hmm. And when can I get a police report? Just the really common questions that occur over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it would be helpful for me to hear from requesters what the most frequent and common issues are. One of the things that I noticed in starting this position is that there isn't a whole lot of data for me to work with. On the federal government, agencies are required to do annual reporting on the number of requests that they receive, which exemptions they're using to withhold materials, how long it takes for the average request to be processed. And there is no sort of reporting or data collection here, so it's hard for me to know what are the sort of frequent problems under the public records law. What are the agencies that more frequently have problems processing requests? So it's really useful information for me to hear from requesters, even if it is just anecdotal data for now, what problems are recurrent. And just as a note, one of my potential legislative proposals is to create some annual reporting requirements and data collection requirements for agencies on the state level, so that the public and my office and other members of government can have, and the legislature can have a better sense of which agencies are succeeding at public records requests and which agencies are having a bit of a harder time.
I think that lack of data is an indication of what I've feel as is a cultural issue is having been on the requester end for many years, that there is this culture that the public records obligations are an added obligation on top of government agencies' real quote unquote jobs, as opposed to a core uh, part of their job.
Yeah, that is a perennial issue, and it's certainly an issue that I saw on the federal level as well. Also, going back to the question that you had about the website, one of the other things that I was hoping to have up on the website was a way to direct people to where to file a public records request, or who would be responsible within an agency for processing requests, especially. Under the law already, agencies are supposed to make publicly available information about how to make a request, and what specific person within the agency is tasked and especially responsible for. Now, of course, public records are everyone's responsibility, but agencies are supposed to designate a particular contact for public records requests. Anecdotally, when I looked around on a lot of agency websites, I wasn't seeing that information. So I'm hoping to be able to direct folks to that information. It's one of my longer-term projects. And even if that's just something as simple as directing folks to the online Oregon Blue Book, I think that would be a useful resource for me to have on the website.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Do others have thoughts or comments?
Well, I'm Terry. I'm a record supervisor for a city police department, and I just wanted to say that I am very excited about the training. You know, it's Oregon, I guess probably all public records law there seems to be a lot of gray areas, and the more training we can get, the better, to help with making those decisions and critical thinking, especially new clerks coming in.
Yeah. Yeah,
There
it certainly seems like they're
training twice a year, but the person who offered that had passed away, and there really hasn't been anything since then for Oregon specifically.
Yeah. I'm hoping one of my eventual goals is to get a training module up on the website that's specifically for new recruits as part of onboarding for all government entities. Because again, public records are everyone's job within the agency. And I think that just a brief training on public records for folks who are starting new at a government entity might be really helpful. Also, if you want to, and if you would like to schedule a training with me, if I don't already have something on the calendar, feel free to email me. I would be happy to come out.
Okay. Yeah, I think even for everybody, because I noticed with even detectives or sergeants putting out press releases, sometimes I'm like, we shouldn't be saying this. So I think everybody needs, basic training for sure. And then a little more detailed training for records specifically for our agency, because we process all the report requests.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will try to tailor my trainings as I go along to the audience that I'm speaking to. I think the training for records management folks specifically would be perhaps a little bit more in depth than the training that I would provide to folks who aren't engaged regularly in records management issues. But I do think that there's a place for training for all folks at government entities.
Yeah. I like the standardized fee structure too. I didn't really know that was being considered. I like that idea also.
Yeah, it's great. And I do have the link to my website if you wanted to take a look at that. There was a report behind it. This is something that was, I think, a few years in the making. And one of the things that we talked about at the Public Records Advisory Council was perhaps doing something to put that in the legislation or to promote it further to government entities to try to encourage adoption of that standardized fee structure. Do others have thoughts on the feedback questions, or just comments on perennial issues that you're seeing in public records processing? All right, last chance.
Everybody's so quiet.
Well, if anyone is too shy to to speak up on this forum, I would be happy to hear from you via email, or feel free to give me a call. Um, the feedback questions I should be posting up on my website pretty soon, because I think that these are feedback questions that would be really useful to me and to my office as I grow and develop this office. So I would love to hear from you. Any thoughts that you have on how my office can better serve you, or what sort of materials we should include on the website or in our trainings. Um, Thoughts on perennial issues in public records requests, because again, I don't have a lot of data. The data that I have is the data that I receive from you folks, from stakeholders who engage with me and with my office. So I would really love to hear from you. And my contact information again is up on the website. So thank you very much for being here.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It's very
Thank
informative. I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.